Hello everyone! I hope that you're doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Boom Shikha and I welcome you to my channel. As always, I'm so grateful that you're listening, subscribing and commenting. I really appreciate the support. In this one, I wanted to speak to you about something that's a little bit uncomfortable, annoying, irritating, frustrating, something that I have to deal with on a constant basis, really. And I want to do this video because I really want to support all those women who are kind of going through the same thing as I am, but also to kind of shake them up a bit. Because I want to go up to these women, but I want to shake them and say, stop beating yourself up over this. It's not your fault. This is the structure that you're living in. It's the patriarchal structure, the culture that you're in. There's nothing you can do about it. Either you fight against it and you are either estranged from your parents, or you don't fight against it and you kind of go along with the system and then you live a life that you don't want to live. And if you haven't guessed already, I'm talking about the forced nature of either arranged marriage or being married in a culture. I'm talking about my culture, Indian culture, but I know there's a lot of different cultures in the world that kind of do the same thing. I can speak about my own, I can't speak about others. But the thing in Indian culture where by a certain age, if you're not married as a woman, then even as a man, I would say, then there's so much pressure on you that a lot of women, if they don't have a good support structure, or if they aren't strong enough in their own worthiness, or they're not strong enough in their own sense of who they are, then they will give in to the pressure and they'll be like, yeah, you know what, I can't deal with the pressure anymore. I can't deal with all of this stress of having to constantly fight against my parents. I can't deal with this madness of constantly having to tell my parents, either you choose, or my parents telling me constantly that either you choose us or you choose, your own life. But you can't choose both. You can't live your own life and still have your parents around you. And a lot of women worry about the fact that if they did live their own life, if they did not get married, if they didn't want to get married and they don't, and they go against their parents' wishes, it means that they might be estranged from their parents, that they never talk to them again. Their parents will never speak to them again, and they will let them go as if they don't even matter anymore, right? As if they weren't even family, just because they want to live their own life. They want to live a life where either they get married for love or they don't get married at all because that's not something they're interested in. Unfortunately, I get a lot of messages from women who ask me the same question, how did you fight against your parents and not get married? And to give you my own story, one of the things, and it's not even just women from India, it's Indian women from everywhere, from all over the world. So US Indian women, women who live in Canada, Indian women who live in Canada, they have the same issue. Indian women who live in Australia, the UK. It's not like we're only talking about women, Indian women particularly who live in India who are having this problem. It's Indian women everywhere, literally everywhere, okay? So I'm not just saying, oh, right, if you live in Canada, everything's dandy. No, it's not dandy. It's not fine. It's actually the same, right? And so as an Indian woman, my parents are not as crazy, I would imagine. They did pressure me quite a bit in the beginning, but then they realized that I wasn't going to give in. And I have the advantage that I'm not afraid of losing my parents or my family. And I think that's an advantage because if I was afraid of losing them, then they could have used that as a tool to pressure me into saying, oh, well, if you don't get married, you're going to lose your family and you're never going to speak to us again. And for me, I was like, if that's the case, then okay, then goodbye, c'est la vie. I'm going to go off and do my own thing. I'll never speak to you again. And you're the ones who are going to be losing out because you're never going to see me again. And, you better prepare for that. Because I was absolutely sure, I was 100%, 100,000% sure that I did not want to get married. And if it meant losing everything else in the world, if it meant losing my family, never speaking to them again, my parents particularly, because my siblings wouldn't do that. If it meant losing my friends, which wouldn't happen either, but if it meant losing my friends, it was okay with me. If it meant losing my life in Canada, it was okay with me. If it meant losing all of my relatives all over the world and never being in contact with them, it was okay with me. If it meant losing everything else in the world just so that I could live my life on my own terms, it was okay with me, right? And so, of course, from my perspective, I was living a completely different kind of scenario because for me, the threat that, oh my God, you're never going to be able to speak to your parents again or your family again, it means nothing to me. It means not even a little smidgen of a something, right? It's like, okay, cool, right, cool. If you don't want to talk to me again because I'm living my own life, then goodbye, right? I will never speak to you again. It's okay. But the problem is a lot of Indian women and women in general, or people in general, I guess, are social creatures, and they are afraid of losing their families. And of course, that's a very good system, because a lot of the times when they say, no, I want to get married for love, or I want to live my life on my own terms and I don't want to get married, or I don't want to have children, there's a huge bargaining tool that the parents have that says, okay, well, then you're never going to see us again. We're going to kick you out of the house. You're never going to see us again. And even if these women, a lot of them are doctors or lawyers and they make enough money, the threat of losing their families and never seeing them again is so strong that they're like, all right, cool, I'll get married, right? Or I'll do what you say. What you tell me to do, I'll just do what you tell me to do, because I don't want to lose my family, right? The problem, from what I've seen, is that a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, the threat that the parents are making, that they're never going to see you again because if you don't live according to their standards, is an empty threat. It's not something that it's not going to come to fruition. They're just making empty threats, because you could be like, all right, cool, I'm going to live my life. I'll never see you again. A lot of times they'll backtrack and they'll be like, oh, really? You're all right with never seeing us again? All right, cool, fine, live your own life if that's the way you're going to be. And it's okay, we'll still see you, kind of thing, right? And so a lot of times the threat that they make is empty. So a lot of people don't realize this fact, that people are not as strong as you actually imagine. And if you can be even a smidgen stronger than them in your conviction, you will beat them at their own game, right? And so a lot of times, if my parents make these threats, I know they're empty threats, because I've actually challenged them on these threats many times, and they've not followed through. Whereas if I make a threat that, if you do this to me, I'm leaving, it's not an empty threat. Because if they do something that I don't like and it's not going to work out for me, if I don't like the way it's going and they're kind of threatening my freedom or my independence, or something that's really important to me, I will carry out my threat to the fullest, right? And so I really want to remind you all who are listening, but particularly I'm sure it's Indian women who are listening, or women who are in the situation where they're forced to do something that they're not wanting to do, that they don't want to do. Realize, first of all, that your conviction for your life and the way you want to live your life has to be stronger than someone else's conviction. Your desire to live your life the way you want to live it on your own terms has to be stronger than anything else on the planet. It has to be stronger than anything else on the planet. Because if it isn't stronger than everything else on the planet, then everything else is going to convince you to go along with them. Yeah? Your parents are going to be able to convince you to go along with their plan. Your relatives will be able to convince you to go along with their plan. Your children will be able to convince you to go along with their plan. Whatever it might be, if your conviction isn't strong, everyone else will sway you around to their viewpoint, and then you'll be like a puppet dangling around in the wind, doing whatever everyone else wants you to do. So if your conviction to live your life on your own terms is not strong, that's okay, because that means that everyone else is going to be stronger than you, and you're going to go and live according to their standards, right? So either make your conviction stronger, or realize that you are not convinced of yourself enough. You don't really actually even know what you want to really do with your life. And if you're unsure, then of course the world will be able to convince you to go along with them. Well, you don't really know what you're doing, so why don't you just follow our plan? Oh, I guess, okay, cool. And that's how most people are. They're not convinced, they are not sure. And so of course, if someone says, well, come to me, come to my side, and I'll show you a better way to live, then you'd be like, all right, cool, I guess if I really don't know what I'm doing, at least they know what I should be doing with my life, so I'm going to go do it. I'm going to follow what they're telling me to do, right? And so that's the first thing. If your conviction isn't strong enough, then the world will be able to convince you to come over to their side. So make your conviction stronger, or realize that the world will be able to control you, because that's how the world works, right? It goes in that direction, right? The second thing I want to say is that realize that most people are very weak, and most threats that they're making are empty threats. They're not strong enough to carry them out. And so if you think that your parents are going to leave you or not talk to you ever again because of what you've done, maybe it's true. Maybe there are some people like that. But in most cases, they're not like that. They're too afraid to be alone when they're old. They're too afraid of you going away and leaving them. they're too afraid of being estranged from their kids. They don't want that to happen, right? And so it's an empty threat. And so you have to push back a little bit, because you'll see that as soon as you push back, their house of cards will completely fall over, and you'll be able to live your life the way you want to live it and still be in contact and in a relationship with your family and friends and parents. Now, of course, these are my experiences, and I've seen this happen many times with women who were in love with someone, but because their parents were like, no, you're gonna marry someone that we want you to marry, they did. And it's not that they're not happy or anything, it's just that they decided, okay, I love my parents a lot, and I'm gonna follow what they want me to do, and I want to do what they ask me to do, and I want to live my life according to the standards that they have for me. And so that's okay. It's not like I'm saying completely that, okay, kill everyone, move everyone out of the way and do your own thing, right? Live your life according to your own standards if you can, if you have the conviction for it or if you have the strength for it. If you don't, then live your life according to what other people tell you to do, because that's what you're going to do. That's how life works, right? But again, realize that that's what you're doing and stop fighting against it. If you know you're too weak to fight against the system and against your parents, then just go along with them. You're just too weak. You're not going to be able to go along with your own system. You don't have enough conviction. If you have enough conviction, then fight the system and fight your parents. And you'll see that it'll all work out in the end. And if it doesn't, if they don't talk to you anymore, is that such a big loss, really? People who don't love you and don't want you to live your life according to your own standards? I don't think it's a big loss. If my parents were like that and if they never spoke to me again because I was living my life according to my own desires and wishes, then I'd be like, all right, no great loss to me. I don't want to be around people or be related to people who don't care about me and who don't want me to live the life that I want to live. So why does it matter anyways? I'll find my own family, right? And so I'll make my own family with the people and the friends that I meet. And so really, I really want you guys to look at it in a very objective manner as much as possible, because it's not just you fighting against the system, it's you and your next generation as well. What if you kind of went along with the system and your parents, and then your children came along, and the same thing happens to your girls, to the daughters that you raise, and then their daughters, and then just the system keeps on going forever and ever and ever. If just one person fights against the system and breaks it, it means that next few generations or next future generations are not in the system anymore. They're not stifled by the system anymore. They're free to do what they want, right? And that's the whole responsibility we have as individuals right now. We have the capacity to build the shackles of the future generations, or we have the capacity or the freedom to give freedom to the next few generations. What are you going to choose? Right? It's your responsibility. What are you going to choose? Right? As you can tell, I get really animated about the subject because it is extremely important to me. If you have questions about this, comment below and I shall do a follow-up video. It's a hard question to answer because every situation is obviously unique, but these are two things that I've noticed constantly in the questions I've been asked and my situations and the people around me, so I want to share it with you. Again, thank you so much for listening, and I shall see you the next time around. Bye for now.